I got to face the facts. I got to bite the bullet. Come to grips. Pay the piper. Look him straight in the eye and face the music. I have the worst hobby in the world. So subscribe, like, opt for notifications, because you're about to see a grown man cry.
That video room ain't going to be a youth hangout.
Hey, so how was that intro for some high drama? If you haven't guessed by now, my hobby is not needlepoint or stamp collecting or collecting vintage books or something tame and docile like that. My hobby, or one of my hobbies, is vinyl. Recordings, records, LPs, wax. Buying it, acquiring it, collecting it, playing it, agonizing over it. That's what the world of vinyl is. And sometimes I question myself why I'm involved at all. Now, I've been buying vinyl since 1970. You know, what is that, 51 years ago now? When I used to sack groceries at the base commissary at RAF Lakenheath in England, and I would take all my money from the tips every day and run to the BX before it closed, the base exchange, and buy a record for $2.50, and maybe I'd have a little left over for a hamburguesa or something. But that's where it all started, and I used to put them under my jacket in the back and sneak them into the house. I don't know why. My parents never said that I couldn't buy music, but it just felt a little weird and indulgent to me. So for my own peace of mind, I would I would smuggle them in under the jacket. And I don't know, something about vinyl in the early days when that's all there was. Maybe there were some cassettes. You know, I had a top-loading Toshiba cassette deck back in high school, but you know, I didn't really think much about the quality of the sound. Now, there are people that will say that vinyl is the ultimate in sound, and we're going to get to that in a minute and argue about that. But in the day, since that's all there was, I guess I just accepted the noise between the tracks, and at the beginning and at the end, and the scratches and the clicks and the pops and the static and all that stuff, and the warps when you would buy a record and it would be warped, and you had to put your tail between your legs and go back to the store and beg for a refund on an album that already had the shrink wrap removed. You know, it's those kind of moments that make you question, you know, why you're in this endeavor at all. And yesterday was maybe the pinnacle of my frustration, because nothing sounded right to me. Nothing in my system, particularly my turntable, sounded right to me. And I was pulling my hair out, and I was bitching and moaning, and I was threatening to throw it all out the back door and let people haul it away. I don't know how they get in my backyard, but you know what I'm saying. I was just frustrated, and nothing sounded right. And when you have those moments, being an audiophile or being an enthusiast or a record collector, you have those moments when you have to try to figure out, what is it? What's going wrong? Is it the actual record itself? Was it pressed bad? Was it mixed bad? Was it recorded bad? Was it all three of those things? Is it your speakers? Is it your amplifier? Is it a little too revealing? Is it not revealing enough? Is it your turntable? Is it your cartridge? And we'll get into that in a little bit. And it's just frustrating. And then is it your own ears or your allergies acting up? There's just some days where nothing sounds good and you just need to get out of the game and go do something else. Watch Netflix or something, because nothing that you're listening to is going to sound great or appeal to you. And that's just the truth. And I'm bringing you the cold hard truth here, because I have to say it. I'm not quite sure if vinyl records are the be all end all in audio. Now, I have a pretty decent turntable. I mean, I stay within my means with regards to buying equipment. I have a $500 turntable. That is pretty much the stepping off point, the entry level to audiophilia, if I can use that word. That's not great. There are people that spend tens of thousands of dollars on turntables and assorted attachments and equipment and add-ons. I've got a $500 table, a Project Carbon Evo. You can look it up. And I've done a couple upgrades to it. For $200, I think I bettered the cartridge. I upgraded the cartridge to a Moonstone, a Sumiko Moonstone, and I put an acrylic platter on there to hopefully deaden the resonance of the turntable. And the more I seem to try to upgrade, and then you get into isolation. I've tried to isolate the table more. In other words, try to reduce vibrations through certain, techniques and cockamamie, is that even a word? Cockamamie schemes, butcher blocks and blue tack and sorbethane feet, etc., etc. The more I experiment and try to better the sound, the more I feel like I've degraded the sound. So yesterday, I'll give you a good example of a record. This is the one that caused me the most frustration. Let me take it out of I don't even know why I'm protecting it, because I'll probably never play it again. This is brand new. This is Steely Dan live, their first recording in 25 years, Northeast Corridor. It's a live recording. It is mastered by the man with the $1 billion ears, Bernie Grundman. And for all intents and purposes, this should be an amazing sounding record. First of all, it's Steely Dan. Asia is probably one of the finest rock recordings ever done, certainly top 10. And this has gotten so many good reviews. But when I threw this on the turntable and I started playing it through my equipment, it was like sandpaper on a chalkboard. The sibilance, the harshness of the vocals, the S's, the sibilance, the crash of the cymbals were distorting and just going off the charts. And it didn't make any sense, because this is Bernie Grundman, this is Steely Dan, this is 180 gram virgin vinyl. Oh, I don't know if it's virgin vinyl, but it probably is. It's not necessarily an audiophile pressing, but it's got good notices. And I just went nuts. I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out if it was the horn speakers that I was using, if it was the cartridge that was mismatched, if the amplifier was too revealing, and I tried to turn down the tone controls a little bit on the treble, and that didn't seem to help, and it was just super distorted. And so I started questioning my whole existence and my whole system. So I brought the turntable down to the kitchen where I had better light last night, and I started taking stuff apart. And you have no idea. You have no idea how technical this hobby can be. I'm gonna tell you some things, and what I'm gonna tell you is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to turntable adjustment. It is so scientific and so what's the word I want to use? It's so technical that I can't even get my feeble mind around it. But I took the cartridge out of the shell, the stylus in the cartridge. I took the platter off, the acrylic platter, and put the steel platter back on. I took all the upgrades off that I had done and got the turntable back to factory. And then I spent the next 4 hours trying to dial in the cartridge. And what does that involve? Well, the cartridge is the thing that cost a couple $100 or more that actually plays the record. It's got the needle, and then it's got the body, and you mount it into the head shell, and you hope that everything goes right. Now, a lot of times that stuff's mounted in the factory, and that's one of my questions. Did they mount it right in the factory? They must mount hundreds of these things every day. How did they do it? And was it actually dialed in properly? And was that what was causing the Steely Dan record to basically explode in the speakers from a high frequency point of view? So when you're dialing in a cartridge, there's so many things to consider. There's the azimuth, which is the angle from the front that the cartridge is rotated. That needs to be perfectly square. There's the cantilever, the little metal pole that holds the needle, that has to be at a certain angle. I think that's called the rake. There's VTA, vertical tracking adjustment. There's VTF, vertical tracking force. That's how much downforce you're putting on the record from the needle. There is overhang. Did I say azimuth? I said azimuth already. There's all these minor adjustments that you have to make, and if one of them is wrong, even by a fraction of an inch or a fraction of a millimeter, it could cause your whole system to be worthless. And I don't know. I see people buy Crossley turntables in the big box stores, and I want to stop them and strangle them and tell them, don't do it, because you're buying a low-end turntable that's putting 6 grams or more of force down on the record. You're going to destroy any record that you play. And is that what you want to do with your valuable collection? But then again, they're probably in some kind of bliss because they don't have to deal with all this stuff. They're not thinking about azimuth. They're not thinking about vertical tracking angle or cantilever rake or any of that stuff. And there's more to it. There's so much more to it. What I've explained, I had to print protractors out. I had to print out these guides that you have to put on the turntable to try to align the cartridge. The problem with that is there's 50 or more different types of protractors, each one with a different logarithm, I guess. A different delta? Is that right? I don't even know what a delta is. I heard someone use that expression today. I'm going to start using it more. A different delta and a different. It's mind numbing. And once you get in it, and if you have any kind of a OCD at all, even a minor case of OCD in your system, that's not even that doesn't even sound like a medical description. What am I trying to say? You know what I'm trying to say? Don't make me work for it. It'll drive you nuts. You'll spend hours and hours and hours, and then you've got to go in and plug it back in and play some records, and then they don't sound right, and you come back and you make another adjustment for a few hours, and you take it back up and you play some more records, and maybe it sounds better or maybe it doesn't. After a while, you don't even trust your own ears. It's like, why do we do this? I have a nice streamer. I have a high-res digital streamer that plays music to perfection, albeit digital. I have no complaints. I would be very happy for the rest of my life just playing high-res digital files from my Blue Sound node into my Technics amp, into my whatever speakers I'm choosing to use that day, and I would be perfectly happy. I have no complaints. The interface is great. You sit on your couch with your iPad and you're basically playing free music. I mean, you're paying for the service. You're paying for Tidal and all that. Amazon Music, iTunes, whatever it is, Spotify, not a fan. And I could be perfectly happy doing that for the rest of my life. But what is it about vinyl that makes me want to acquire it and play it and care for it and cherish it? I don't know, because it doesn't, I'm going to be hated for saying this, it doesn't pay me back. It just doesn't. I hear every click, every pop. I hear the inner groove distortion. That's another thing I didn't mention. Inner groove distortion. That's another thing you have to deal with. The record may sound good at the beginning and sound bad toward the end. Or vice versa. It just depends how your system's all set up. And so I toiled and toiled last night, and I cursed and I cussed and I threatened my wife that I was going to mortgage the house and get a real turntable, something upwards of $1,500, $2,000, something that a turntable a grown man should have, not a Project Carbon Evo. Sure, it gets great reviews. I mean, listen, it gets great reviews. It's not a bad entry-level table, I guess. I just can't make it work for me. So why do I do it? I don't know. Is it a force of habit? Is it just to collect something? Is it just the thrill of the hunt or the find? Do I enjoy going to record stores and meeting people like Mike up in the In Groove, or, you know, all the people that I've met over the years? I mean, there used to be a whole culture where you could go to record stores, and you might even meet the artist. As I met Elvis Costello and Nick Lowe on their first tour, they were just hanging out in a record store. And there was a whole culture. When John Lennon died, when I heard the news on Monday Night Football, I went to Sound Warehouse. I went to the record store. Where else were you going to go? I bought my first CD at Waterloo Records back when I talked my dad into buying me an $800, the very first consumer CD player, the Sony CDP 101. I begged my dad on a trip to Japan to pick it up for me and bring it back, and he did. Now, what is that in 2021 dollars? If in 1984, I think, is that right? I can't remember when CD players came out. What would an $800 CD player be worth with inflation in today's dollars? That's nuts that he did that for me. And I was in awe. I was in awe of the CD. I used to look at, and when I went to Waterloo Records, they only had 3 CDs on the wall. I'm not talking about multiple copies of 3 CDs. They had 3 CDs thumbtacked behind the cash register to a wall. They had Van Morrison, Beautiful Vision. They had Michael Jackson, Against the Wall. Is it Against the Wall? I can't remember the title of it. And they had Journey's Greatest Hits. And I took the Van Morrison as the very first CD I ever bought. And it was, to my knowledge, I was the first person in Austin to have a CD player, because I bought one of the only 3 CDs that was available in Austin. And so I don't even know where I was going with that, other than, you know, to tell you about the way record stores for me were like the town square. You know, that's where you went, that's where you assembled, that's where you met people, that's where you had some good times. You saw some bands on a Friday, had a free beer or whatever. And all that's gone away. And so has you know, in the old days, if I had a turntable problem, I would just take it down to a local dealer. In my case, it'd be like High Fidelity on Lavaca. And you would take it to a guy, and he had a microscope, and he would check your cartridge out and your stylus, and he had the alignment tools, and he had all the spectrographs, and they could see, man, they could see on a computer screen or a spectrograph, you know, if you were dialed in. And now you don't have any of that. You buy all your equipment pretty much mail order now, and it comes in. You don't know how it's going to sound. You can't audition it. They don't have stuff at Best Buy. They just have, you know, some of the Best Buys have some nice stuff, but, you know, there's only so much stuff out there that you can audition. And so all that's gone away. And so you're left to your own devices, as I was last night. All this to tell you that I'm not quite sure if I love my hobby, or if my hobby is rewarding me in the way that it should. And something else went down last night too, that, you know, once I thought I had the turntable dialed in, I thought, oh, you know what? I never got around to playing this. Remember this? This was the Walmart, let me see if I can get it on camera here. Is that right side up? There you go. The Walmart version of Let It Be that comes with the free pictures and everything. I never took the vinyl out and played it until last night. Well, I'd never played it because I took it, here it is here. Do you notice something? The sleeve is empty. Why is the sleeve empty? Did they forget to put the record in there? No. When I took it out to play it, on side 2, when I looked at it, there was a piece of brown paper or some material that was embedded, literally melted into the plastic. It wasn't big. It was like the size of I don't know. I can't think of anything. It was pretty small, but I know that it would have caused probably 30 seconds of skipping on the vinyl, because it was some material, a plastic, brown plastic, or a piece of paper or something that was literally melted. And I thought, well, this album's a goner anyway, so I came down, I got some stuff, I tried to clean it with some microfiber and some record cleaning fluid. It just wouldn't come out, and so that actual piece of vinyl that used to be in here is now sitting outside in my trash bin because it was worthless. And that's the kind of thing that you can't predict. You can't predict what you're gonna get. You may spend $150 on an audiophile pressing of something, and it might have a warp in it, or it might have sibilance, or it just may be a lousy pressing. You don't know. I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe that's why I do it. Maybe it's my version of gambling. Does that make sense? I just thought of that because I'm a big thinker like that. Maybe it's a legalized form of gambling. You just don't know what you're going to get. You don't know how much you're going to enjoy it. And that's a shame because you should spend your time listening to music, not listening to your equipment. And I find myself, especially with regards to vinyl and turntables, analyzing it. Is it a good pressing? Was it a good mix? Was it a good recording to begin with? Is the material they're pressing it on? Is it the plant? What plant? Is it RTI? Is it Mobile Fidelity? Where was this made? Is it Czechoslovakia or someplace worse? I shouldn't say that. I have Czechoslovakian relatives. My wife's Czech, kind of. But you know what I mean. And so you start obsessing about these things. But then every once in a while, you go into your room and you turn your stuff on and you have an experience like I had last night with this record, which I picked up Saturday at Living in Stereo. Shout out to Robert and Enzo. I couldn't believe this was only $15 because, number one, it's Kenny Burrell, who I love. Now, I don't listen to a lot of jazz. I'll listen the shit out of Kenny Burrell. This dude was the man. And we wouldn't have all that great Stevie Ray Vaughan music probably if Kenny Burrell didn't exist. But this record here, for $15, is an original Blue Note DMM. I don't know if you can see that there. I think it's direct to metal mastering. So I think it's kind of almost like a one-step, and it's not a one-step, but they take a few steps out of the pressing. It was super clean, man. It was super clean. And I was listening to this last night after I dialed in my turntable for the third time. And there was a part, because I was looking at my phone while I was listening, there was a bass drum kick that hit on this record at one point where I literally looked up because it sounded like it was in the room. And that's the moment. That's the moment right there that will keep you in the game. You know when you're playing golf, I don't play much golf, but you know when you're playing golf and you're around the 13th hole and it's just not going right? And you're telling yourself, I'm just going to sell these clubs on eBay or throw them in the lake. I'm done with this. And then out of nowhere, you hit a birdie out of a sand trap and they got you. What did they say in The Godfather 3? They're pulling me back in. Same with vinyl. You have those moments. Just about when you're ready to throw in the towel, you have a Kenny Burrell moment and the kick drum hits and you look up because you're startled because you can't believe that sound came from the front of your room. And so we'll see. I didn't have enough time last night to do a lot of critical listening on my last dial-in, but I'm going to go up there later today and I'm going to obsess again and I'm going to put different music on and hopefully the protractor I used was the right protractor and my vertical tracking angle and my vertical tracking force is okay and my azimuth, I can't control my turntable is so cheap you can't adjust the azimuth anyway. But I hope everything works in harmony. And, I get one of those experiences where you're just pulled into the music and you feel like a kid again. That's all I want. I just want to feel like a kid again. I want to have that awe. I want to have that wonder of listening to a record for the first time and feeling like the artist is in the room. Is that too much to ask? I don't think so. I'll let you know how my struggle with vinyl goes in the weeks and months ahead on this channel. But buyer beware. If vinyl is something that you want to get into, think long and hard about it. It is not a perfect science. It is not a perfect art form or delivery system. Sometimes it pays off big dividends. Other times, you'll be ripping the hair right out of your scalp. All I can tell you is get the best equipment that you can afford. Find yourself a vinyl guru, somebody that you can talk to, or maybe it's somebody online that you can be inspired by and get tips from. And then hang on to your hats, because it's going to be a wild and woolly ride. Thanks for listening to my ramblings. And we'll see you next time right here in my office below my media room.